let's go back to what, the 1500s and talk about the Dutch East India Company. The Dutch East India Company, probably the biggest corporation that ever existed in the human race, which was worth like $7 trillion. I know everybody thinks Apple and Amazon are so valuable. They're a smidgen compared to the Dutch East India Company. And that company had an army. It could wage war, okay, to protect trade routes.
They're an autonomous equivalent to a nation.
Right. They were essentially a corporate nation, okay? And no cryptocurrency has that. It is my pleasure to welcome Steve Hoffman back to the show, otherwise known as Captain Hoff. He is the author of the 3 books you see on the screen. If you are watching on video, if you're not, well, you'll probably hear about him during the show. And I want to talk to him about a few things today. The first of which, since he was on last time, a lot has developed in the space of land in the metaverse, right? We talked about that last time he was here. And he has some new thoughts on that. I was kind of getting interested, and well, you'll hear that in a moment. And then we're going to talk about all of the applications. Well, there's never all of them, but many of the applications of technology in real estate. And it's going to surprise you, some of this stuff. I mean, some of it, some you thought of, some you haven't thought of. So I think you're going to get some interesting insights into the future. We're going to peer in the future today. And Steve, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you, Jason. It's fantastic to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. I should be saying Captain Hoff, I guess.
That's my nickname.
All right. Well, hey, first off, I want to ask you to just comment on land in the metaverse. Now, this has taken a while for me to get my head around NFTs, and I still remain skeptical of NFTs and cryptocurrency. And land in the metaverse is really just another form of an NFT, right? A non-fungible token, right?
That is correct.
So an NFT basically allows, well, it creates digital scarcity because there can only be one of each thing, yet, of course, the metaverse is unlimited in size. So it's kind of a contradiction, I know. Some people have taken a while to get their head around this, as have I, and some, they're new to it, so I just wanted to mention that for those newer people. But anyway, where do you buy land in the metaverse, first of all? Just give us some of the big places you do that. Decentraland?
Decentraland, probably the most popular one. You can go there, you can buy homes, all sorts of things. They have art galleries where you can buy NFT paintings, you name it. They have parties, corporate events, bands, pretty active. There's also Sandbox, one of the other huge one. Axie Infinity, sort of a game like a Pokemon style game in the metaverse where you buy Pokemons, you earn revenue. They call it play to earn, the whole model there. And there are many others. There are hundreds of others.
Right. There's an unlimited, there's no size constraints on this stuff. But it's really interesting how some of this stuff is being organized. I mean, it is formal in many cases. Building codes, I mean, literally building codes. You would not think you would need a building code in a virtual reality world.
Right, or homeowners associations. You got to keep it up to a certain standard.
HOAs, the illegal governments have invaded the metaverse. Unbelievable. Well, let me tell you, folks, I recently, just last week, in preparation for this interview, I wanted to reacquaint my thinking on this. And so I watched the movie Ready Player One again. And,
great movie.
Yeah,
good
of course,
homework.
That's a movie anybody who wants to understand what's coming should see. Ready Player One. It's a famous movie, and it talks all about the metaverse and shows you examples of this whole life. But today I said I wanted to talk a little bit about virtual land in the metaverse, and you said you thought it was a scam. Tell us about that, because that's what I thought.
I'll give people one other source to get acquainted with the metaverse and the future of technology, really, and it's my book, The 5 Forces That Change Everything.
Right.
It goes in depth on where we're headed with this technology. But let me start. I've been fascinated with technology my entire life. I'm a huge pro technology guy. That's what I do. I work with startups around the world, helping fund them, helping train them, grow their businesses. So I was fascinated by the metaverse. And I wanted to see where we're headed and whether it's a good investment. Like, you know, your audience out there, they're investing in real estate. Why shouldn't they go to Decentraland or Sandbox or Axie Infinity and buy some of this virtual real estate and start earning from it? Well, the more deeper I dug into it, the more skeptical I became. And usually, I'm one who would be converted. Like, I love technology.
Yeah.
But what I found is that, these are good investments as long as you know when to sell. So they're very speculative. So basically, as long as that community is growing and strong and continues to grow, usually you will see your investment appreciate, meaning other people will pay more money than you paid.
Right.
But as soon as these communities, there are two things that can tip the balance, and your assets can start to decline in value very rapidly, like literally crash. And one thing is the community just dries up, like people move on. Like, so
it's kind of like a nightclub.
Yeah, if nobody's in the nightclub, nobody wants to be there.
Popular and everybody goes there, and then it kind of fades and the crowd changes and nobody wants to go anymore. And
so imagine if you bought a bar stool in this nightclub and we're renting it out to people and stuff. It's great as long as people want to sit in it, but as soon as they aren't coming in, it goes away. And we see this, like, virtual worlds aren't new. Like, the metaverse isn't new. We had Second Life, hugely popular. Its economy was bigger than some countries. And this was back decades ago.
Yeah.
And, then it imploded. It's still around today, but it's a shadow of its former self. And,
so Second Life is kind of like MySpace.
No, Second Life was a full-on virtual world.
No. I mean, I know what it was. Yeah. I'm saying it's analogous to MySpace.
Oh, yeah. It's
was huge, and now it's nothing.
Right, yeah. Just like MySpace. No, you could have a MySpace page, but who cares? Like, nobody does it. So most of these will end up like Second Life, even if they're very successful. They just have a limited time span. It's not like real estate in the real world where somebody who always needs it.
Captain Hoff, I'll give you the counterpoint. I mean, big corporations that we think must know what they're doing are spending quite literally millions and millions of dollars on virtual land. And, Gucci has done a virtual fashion line. You heard about that probably. They have virtual Gucci stores you can go into and pay with real money to buy virtual clothing. Like, it takes a while to get your head around this stuff. I'm too old for this.
I'm a virtual world veteran. I ran my own virtual world back in the days of Second Life. It all happened before. This is Redux. We've seen this before. All the big corporations were in. Did it make a difference in the long run? They're in for marketing. Anything that's hot, if you're a smart branding person, you'll jump on that bandwagon because it gets the Gucci name out. So They're not making long-term investments for the value of these virtual goods or even releasing them. They are going in for the hype. Now, like I said, for any given period of time, if you know when to get out and you're a gambler, come in, invest, but just make sure to sell before. You don't want to be the last one holding the bag.
Okay, so look, when we teach real estate investing, yes. I've been teaching real estate investing for almost 20 years now. Well, really even before that when I was in the traditional business, but exclusively investors for almost 20 years. And we teach buy and hold stuff. We teach don't expect appreciation. If it happens, great. It's sort of hard to, have that line in the last couple of years because there's been so much appreciation. It's been wonderful. But, we teach that that's kind of the icing on the cake rather than the cake itself. How would someone know, though, in the metaverse, where you are on that curve, right? Because we have heard stories, and I don't know if my listeners have heard them, but I've definitely heard them from people I actually know. I believe them. I don't think they're making this up, that they have made money speculating on virtual land in the metaverse. Now, how would you know if it's hot or if it'll remain hot or for how long, or are there any metrics?
So a lot of these things, like anything that becomes a trend in the media, you can see, wow, this is taken off, right? People are coming in. And it's always a risk because nobody knows when the market is at the top. And right. These aren't like real estate, like actual physical property in the real world. Physical property in the real world, for the most part, for most property, you can earn income off of it. So you can rent it out, you could live in the space, and therefore you don't have to pay rent and you're saving money. They are worth something. In the virtual world now, what they have is they have play to earn, which means they've built in game mechanics into these, like Axie Infinities is the biggest one in the world, where you can literally buy these Pokemon-like characters and other assets in their virtual world. And then you can start to earn money. So then you could say, well, it's analogous to real estate in the real world. Like I buy something and it's producing income. Well, what they're paying you is in their own virtual currency. So they promise you buy this land or you buy this object or this character or this monster, whatever it is, and you can actually earn money owning it forever. Sounds great. Now, and it really works. So a lot of people, they would buy these assets and they would either be producing income for them or they would just be holding them and they would be appreciating, the two ways you can earn. And as long as more people are coming into the system and paying, and money is flowing into that system and people are buying more, there's a strong demand, right, for people buying more, then these virtual NFT objects generate more money, and the value of that currency goes up, and the value of those assets go up. However, what Axie Infinity, and I say they're the biggest one, ran into a snag, and that is called inflation. Because as soon as things start to taper off and you don't get this huge flood of new users coming in buying, all of a sudden they are printing their virtual currency. They promised it to all these people, and basically they're flooding the market. Inflation takes over and the value of the currency starts to drop, and then the value of the assets start to drop, and everything starts to implode. Now, Axie Infinity isn't dead yet. They're trying to grapple with this inflation problem, but it's really hard because they built it into the mechanics. They can't just turn it off. Once you promise people you're paying them this money.
A couple of things. I definitely want to get into this inflation stuff and their modern monetary theory, which is essentially what they're practicing, which is quite interesting because we've done a few shows on that. You talked about the ways to earn, and I don't want to leave that behind, that you can, it's gamified, and if you are engaged in there, and, I recently got onto a platform, an AI platform where that's gamified, and the more you interact, the more points you get and so forth, and you can buy things with the points, right? And I'm not a gamer or anything like that. I don't do gaming, right? But I just found this to be interesting, so I picked it up and checked it out. I'll talk about it later. But you can also actually rent out your virtual land. That's what I've been told.
Oh, yeah. In Axie Infinity, they had actually companies coming in, buying up these virtual assets, and then renting them out to people who wanted to engage and earn more money in sharing the profits with those people. So they really, took it to the next level. But all of this activity at a certain point it becomes moot when, if there's inflation, if you're just pumping out this virtual currency, but people have too much of it, so that inflation takes over, the whole mechanics that they designed, the whole economies just implode.
So their virtual currency is not like Bitcoin where it's a limited number.
Even if it's a limited number, there's still supply and demand. So if people aren't valuing that at a certain point, then, and what's the value of these digital assets? You have to ask yourself that.
It's nothing unless people believe in it. It's complete.
It's nothing unless people.
The irony of the whole cryptocurrency movement is that it's the biggest fiat of all fiat, right? Like,
there's nothing. There's no economy
fiat money.
There's no economy backing it. There's no government backing it. It's a bunch of, hackers out there, some anonymous programmers, a lot of times they're anonymous, who just put this out there. And if you want to spend money on it and you want to speculate on it, go for it, right? But you have to understand what you're doing. So I'm saying, whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's NFTs, all of these things, the underlying value of these is what people believe in it. And if we look at the models, if we actually dissect the models, they are analogous to Ponzi schemes. Like if they are legalized Ponzi schemes.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Sounds like a Ponzi scheme, but it technically is.
You can make money on a Ponzi scheme. Like if you get in at the right time and out on the right time, you make money. There are people who invested in Bernie Madoff who made a lot of money.
Of course. We all know that. But look, it's not a Ponzi scheme if just new people are coming in to buy things. I mean, that's how the real estate market works. I mean, I guess you could argue that's a Ponzi scheme too, but people believe in real estate on Earth, and more people keep coming in demanding more, and they keep running up the prices, right? That's
not a
Ponzi.
The land has an innate value, right? I can live on the land. I can own a store.
Still doesn't make it a Ponzi though, Steve, because a Ponzi means that you're paying new investors, or you're paying the old investors with the proceeds from the new investors' money, and even though I don't disagree with you at all that this is highly speculative and super risky, it doesn't make it an actual Ponzi scheme.
No, if you're just buying an NFT and it's not paid to play, basically earn to play, earn money as you play, then it's technically might not be a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, not exactly.
The ones where you are actually earning money, they're actually paying you that money through the system, right? Through the money they're bringing in. And that is much closer to an actual Ponzi scheme.
Got it. And I don't deny at all that some cryptocurrencies are Ponzi schemes. In fact, I'm pretty sure they are. But I'll tell you what it is, though. If it's not a Ponzi, it's simply the greater fool theory at work,
that's the best and most accurate way to describe it. It's the greater fool theory.
So the greater fool theory says, just for those who don't know, it says, no matter what I paid for this virtual land, in this case, some greater fool will come along and pay more, right? And
if I believe that, and my assumptions are true, that will work up to a certain point. As long as there's another fool, and as soon as the fools stop coming. So that's what you're getting into. People should understand that. People have made a lot of money in this, and the people, and they're true believers, but you look at a lot of the crypto diehards, they're just moving from one of these to another. They invest in one, they hold it, they move to the next.
It's kind of like, the MLM crowd, multi-level marketing crowd. They just go from like one deal to the next. And conceptually, MLM isn't bad innately, but the problem is the people at the top of all these deals, they're just unethical and they make it bad. Like the business model could actually work.
Yes.
The problem is people are so fallen that it usually doesn't.
And they try to get you to buy products they know that you can't sell, and then you buy a bunch and you're stuck with them. And a lot of people,
if it was based on actual retail usage, then it'd be okay. But those companies are pretty boring. They're like called Amway. Okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's Amway.
That's really based on usage, and nobody makes any money with it anymore because everybody's done it.
Exactly. So I would just say to people, if you want to go to Vegas on your computer, but invest in crypto, invest in NFTs. Like, it's a fun way to gamble, but you better know you're gambling. And that's fine. Go to town if you want to gamble. But if you want a serious investment, a serious long-term buy and hold investment, this is not the way to go. Don't buy and hold.
Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm glad you shared that with us. I wonder if it will always be true, what you're saying, if there will be some, for example, I hate to even mention their name because I hate what they do, and I think the founder is a scumbag, but Facebook, or Meta, actually, if they've got the traffic and they're such a big player that they're going to be around, right? Likely, what if you bought land in their metaverse? The likelihood is that's going to continue.
Just because it's technically around.
Right.
Doesn't mean people are going to continue to pay for it. Now, Facebook, they actually just announced this. Like Mark Zuckerberg, I have the same opinion you do about him. He's proven he's unethical with everything he does. Now, they changed their name to Meta, said they're going to do a big metaverse. Then he recently announced he's not going to do a big metaverse. They're not doing it. He decided because he can't guarantee it will be successful. And honestly, if it isn't successful, it gives Facebook a big black eye. Now, we know Facebook has launched in the past decade dozens of applications, to compete with all sorts of different things online. They tried to do their own TikTok. They tried to do all these other. They ended up killing them all just because Facebook did its own virtual currency. They did its own cryptocurrency.
Well, but that Libra never launched, did it?
They did. Yeah, Libra was going, but nobody cared. Nobody wanted it. Yeah, they launched it and it just went nowhere.
Wow.
And they killed it. So just because they launch a virtual world doesn't guarantee it's going to be successful.
Listen, and I hate this company too, and it's bad ethics. Big tech is just sleazy. It's, the modern day robber barons, unfortunately. Exactly. But if anyone wanted to launch a virtual currency, and I said this many years ago, probably almost 10 years ago, I said this, it should be Amazon. That's the company that actually could do a virtual currency really well, because they've got consumers that buy actual things. Like they should have a currency.
They could have done it. Right. They could have made cryptocurrency, but they didn't. And that's because, honestly, this is the fact. Most people don't want to buy through crypto. Like they don't want to buy, like if you bought Ethereum, which I have, and you bought Bitcoin and you've been in, the transaction fees, a lot of times the gas prices.
Oh, they're huge. Yeah.
They're huge. It makes it untenable.
Right.
And then even if you get those down, it's just darn inconvenient. And most people have their credit card, which gives them like 2% cash back and things like that. What's the incentive for me to do it? For the merchants,
I think
merchants,
to some extent, Captain Hoff, we're all thinking that, look, this is just the very early days of this. It's going to get better.
That for over a decade now.
A decade's not that long in the grand scheme of things.
It isn't. It is.
Yeah.
I'm not a total crypto skeptic. I think there's room for cryptocurrencies, but I will tell you that the amount of hype compared to the amount of utility that these have delivered, it's totally disproportional.
Yeah,
like there's 1,000x on hype and 1x on utility. Like people don't want to buy with cryptocurrency. We've seen it. They don't want to do it. So what are they using cryptocurrency for? Number one, speculation. This is the biggest thing, like gambling. Like people are gambling with it. That's why people buy cryptocurrency. That's why they buy NFTs. Even if you look at Bored Apes, the biggest NFT out there, right? That's the biggest one, Bored Apes.
My friend buys those.
Well, your friend has just lost 50%.
Well, he's made a ton of money on them so far.
Oh, he bought them early then.
He showed me, I couldn't believe this. He showed me his dumb ape on his Twitter account.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's very prestigious to have an NFT as your Twitter thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like driving a Ferrari or something.
Right.
And I just can't get my head around that. Why is that thing worth $220,000?
When you can right click and download it, you can have the same image on yours. You just won't.
You don't need to right click. Just take a screenshot.
Yeah. Either way, right? It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is those went up astronomically in value, and now they've come down. Like they've just come down 50%. I predict they'll come down more. They might go back up and they might come down, but in the long term, I think people will see it for what it is. It's these things aren't really worth anything unless somebody will pay more.
But that's a big unless. Okay, look, I'm going to argue the other side of that. People pay for this stuff. I mean, they have been. It's been amazing. I mean, I can't believe it. Like someone paid $70 million for a JPEG just over a year ago. I mean, it's like shocking.
Yeah, Beeple sold his little JPEG. Great for Beeple. For the person who bought it, they were super rich anyway. The people doing the majority of these big purchases, they're almost all made a huge amount of money early in crypto. So like what I said before, they're just moving their money around to the next hot thing and then hoping to sell it for more.
It's going to be so interesting to see. And listen, I want to state my position again, and we'll move on to the real estate stuff here, okay? But I just want to state the position I have held since I found out about Bitcoin on a beach one night, where a guy was describing it to us and I couldn't get my head around it. It was $74. So about when that was.
You should have bought it.
Of course I should have bought it. But maybe in a few years I'll be saying I'm glad I didn't, but I bought a bunch more at a higher price. Okay. Anyway, look, I would love nothing more than to see, especially something like Bitcoin, be hugely successful and just take over the world. A decentralized money of the people that doesn't require a banking system, that's a DeFi, I would love that. I would love that. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And the reason is we have the two most powerful forces the human race has ever known. After God, which is a supernatural force, you have governments and central banks. They have standing armies, they have police forces, and there is no cryptocurrency that has any of that. Look, let's go back in history. Let's go back to the 1500s and talk about the Dutch East India Company. The Dutch East India Company, probably the biggest corporation that ever existed in the human race, which was worth like $7 trillion. I know everybody thinks Apple and Amazon are so valuable. They're a smidgen compared to the Dutch East India Company. And that company had an army. It could wage war, okay, to protect trade routes.
They were an autonomous equivalent to a nation.
Right. They were essentially a corporate nation, okay? And no cryptocurrency has that.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
If you think that any government, any major government, not El Salvador, which is just a disaster case, or countries like that.
But go there if you want to be kidnapped.
Yeah, but any country, any really major country, like
well, Bahamas is getting into the crypto craze.
Yeah, but they're always into these alternative things because that's how they make their money, is getting people to come there so they don't have to pay taxes or do whatever. But a major country, industrial country, that will adopt a third-party crypto, not one that they issue themselves.
Yeah, right.
That will make that, tie that to their national currency. They will never do it. And
so at the beginning of
the biggest
Russia,
leverage countries have in controlling their economy is their currency. They're not going to give this up.
Of course.
They will not hand this off to some decentralized thing. And that will just remain a fact. Now, I want to say one thing. I do believe in cryptocurrencies. Like, cryptocurrencies will continue to exist. In fact, the US will go digital with its currency at some point. India's done it. China is launching their own blockchain with a cryptocurrency. Now, those cryptocurrencies aren't really decentralized. They are totally centralized.
Right.
So this is my biggest problem with crypto in the first place, is that anybody in power wants centralization. Any corporation, any government needs and wants to control as much as possible.
Right.
But they never want it out of their control. So is there any incentive for them to have a truly decentralized currency? Absolutely not. The only incentive is for people outside that system, right, who don't want to be part of that system to do it. And that's where we get Bitcoin. And the value of Bitcoin is for people, honestly, to get around the system, right? So if you don't want to have your money tied in to a specific currency, you can put it in Bitcoin. If you want to avoid taxes, if you want to do something illegal, you can put it in Bitcoin. If you want to move it around the world.
But actually, you'd be better off, if you wanted to do something illegal, you'd be better off using the dollar, because it's not traceable. Bitcoin is actually quite traceable.
I know.
So,
but they're building cryptocurrencies now that are less traceable. So they're actually working on that. Yeah. Crypto space is very innovative. Right. And I'm not a Luddite. Like I said, my whole life is technology. I'm a realist, though. I try to keep my eyes open. So there is value to cryptocurrency because there are a lot of strong use cases, like I just stated, that aren't necessarily legal or beneficial to society, that people will use these cryptocurrencies for and continue to use them. Now, but what I see in the future is that governments, including the US, at a certain point, will want more and more control over these cryptos. Yeah, right, and a lot of them will be banned, and a lot of them will be highly regulated. And then at a certain point, they won't be that different from other securities that we see.
The gap will start to close.
Right.
And there will be a lot less freedom in the cryptocurrency.
This wild west we're in right now will end. And along with it ending, will end a lot of the speculation.
Yeah. And a lot of the benefits.
Yeah, especially if you're somebody who's, really doesn't want your money tied into a specific system and wants it on the outside. Right. Yes, a lot of those benefits will end.
Yeah. So to address your issue of, will any country really adopt a third-party cryptocurrency that isn't their own? Of course, there's going to be a digital dollar or central bank digital currency.
Right. They're going to do that.
That's going to be here before we know it. And it's going to be unfortunate because it's really going to restrict our freedom and liberty. It's going to be a very bad thing, I think. But, I just wonder, what will Michael Saylor be saying in 5 or 10 years? Like, will he be right and Bitcoin will be $1 million a coin by then? And, or will it be nothing, or will it be about the same? Like, who knows, right? But the one country that I thought might actually adopt that third-party crypto, a good candidate for it would be Russia.
Yeah, Russia.
Not that I'm sympathetic to them, because the Russian people are great, but Vladimir
Putin, Vladimir wants control. Like, his whole thing is about control. Of course he does.
But when they shut him out of the SWIFT system, if he uses Ripple XRP, like, he has an alternative there for him.
So there's an incentive for him. They're using crypto now. Yeah. In Russia, to move their money around, of course. It's something they're using, right? The oligarchs there, they don't want their money now tied up in US dollars, because that's out of their control. I see all these things come down to control, and it's who's controlling what. Sure. The thing that a lot of people fail to understand is they think crypto is truly decentralized, and this is a myth. They think that they are in control. And again, this is a myth, because these crypto systems, if you look really deeply at them, which I have, they have a lot of points of centralization. First of all, the exchanges, right? We've seen that. Secondly, stable coins, right? People have to put their money where they don't want it fluctuating like crazy. These stable coins are literally unregulated banks that can do anything with your money, and they pay like obscene interest rates, which they can't sustain. And so they're not really stable at all, which we saw with Terra when it went, 60 billion in assets lost.
Oh, sure.
And that's not an aberration. That is the system of these. A lot of us decry regulation, and there's over-regulation, of course, is really bad. But a lot of regulation protects consumers who really don't have the information to make intelligent decisions. And these are totally unregulated. So when you're entering these spheres, and even cryptocurrency, you can change the bylaws of crypto. You can like fork and do all these different things if you get a consensus with the majority of the people who control it. And there are a lot of whales out there, and there's a lot of consortiums of groups who actually have the ability to totally rewrite the rules of the crypto. So you can think the rules are one thing one day, and you're fine with those, but they could be something entirely different the next day.
In all fairness, though, I do think it's important to distinguish crypto from Bitcoin, which really is different. I know it's similar in many ways too, but Bitcoin is in a class by itself.
So how would you? So technically, they're not different. Bitcoin is just a variation of a cryptocurrency. It's a subset of cryptocurrency. Which
no. I mean, I understand that, but the ability to have consortiums and consensus on Bitcoin is harder than
it's harder, but it's still there. It's still there, and there are a lot of different groups intermediating and providing services for Bitcoin that are choke points of centralization. Now, what I will say is that Bitcoin is the gold standard of crypto. So like when people ask me over the years, if you were to invest in one crypto, what would you invest in? I said Bitcoin, of course, because it's simply by the network effect, which is the more people that participate, the more value it's worth. And the brand, right? It's something people recognize and trust. Bitcoin has a huge edge over these altcoins, right? So these altcoins are super, super speculative. Bitcoin is much more stable, like you said.
But even that has proven to not be that stable.
It's all relative. It's all relative. But markets go up and markets go down. The stock market goes up, and there's hype, and so all of these things are affected by different things. Will Bitcoin be around? My prediction is it's not going away entirely. The crypto isn't going away entirely. Like it won't. It will evolve too. And there may be new use cases out for it and new abilities. And there may be ways when it's regulated and integrated with governments like the United States in an intelligent way, if we can do that, that it could provide real value to people beyond the current value that it provides. And I want to see what happens. I can't predict because there's so many factors involved and technology changes so quickly. But I am excited about seeing what happens next.
Yeah, it's really quite interesting, all this stuff. All right, Steve, look, I know we didn't cover any of the real estate technology stuff, which I definitely want to do with you, but going down this rabbit hole was fun and interesting for sure, and I hope the listeners and viewers enjoyed it. So why don't we have you back on a second show? Well, that'll be the third, actually, and we'll cover the real estate technology. Folks, you're not going to believe all of the applications, many you haven't thought of, in real estate tech, okay? So we're going to dive into that on a very soon future episode with Captain Hoff. And in the meantime, give out your website.
So if you want to reach me, you can just go to founderspace.com, Founderspace. I'm there. All my books are there. Surviving a Startup, Make Elephants Fly, The 5 Forces. You can also reach me on almost any social network. LinkedIn is a great one. Search for Founderspace or Steve Hoffman.
Can we reach you in the metaverse, though?
You can try. I'm in and out of the metaverse all the time, but like most people, I don't actually spend a lot of time hanging out there.
Well, that's because you don't own any land.
Yeah, but even people own land. They just buy and sell. They're not just chatting in those sites.
You don't have a place to stay. You're homeless in the metaverse.
I am. I'm so sad.
All right. Good to have you, and we'll have you back real soon to talk about real estate technology. Thanks.
Thank you so much.